understand their own pecuniary interests and to declare them. It was the Peters case on that occasion. The Office of the Clerk has recently been quoted as stating that members are required to declare the name of each company of which the MP is a director, and at the very worst, non-declaration could be a contempt of the House if an MP has knowingly provided false information to the House. Mr Speaker, I want to submit to you the words of the then Leader of the Opposition when he said, "Lawyers are the professionals we depend on in our society to ensure the accuracy of the documents that they sign. They should not sign documents knowing them to be false under any circumstances. For the most senior law official in the land, the Attorney-General, to have done so not once but on several occasions is a serious matter. Mr Parker was right to tender his resignation. I commend him for that." I want to then quote the leader of the ACT Party, Rodney Hyde, when he said, "I say to Helen Clark that her government now lacks integrity and honesty. I think filing a false statement, a statutory document, when one is Attorney-General and a Minister of the Crown is unacceptable. I think this issue does need a full investigation. I say to the House that it is an important job to hold ministers to account. That is what Parliament does. That is our Westminster parliamentary democracy." Mr Speaker, David Parker stood down because there was doubt as to whether he signed an incorrect statement. As it turned out, he hadn't. He was reinstated to the ministry, but because there was doubt about that, and because he had not been sure, he was not reinstated to the Attorney-General role. Mr Speaker, it appears on the face of the documents that Mr Finlayson has signed a false statement every year since March 2006. Mr Speaker, his declarations cannot be accurate.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, the assertion made by the Honourable Trevor Mallard is, to say the least, I think outrageous, but also completely spurious. If he was in any way convinced by his own argument, then quite clearly he would have gone to the remedy available to him in standing orders. Rather, sir, he is indulging himself at the expense of the dignity of the House in what is effectively an orchestrated attempt to take down a member where there is no such case to answer. Mr Speaker, I've looked at the motion by the Honourable Bill English. I'm looking at the second reading amendment by Honourable David Cunliffe. I'm looking at the second reading amendment by the Honourable Trevor Mallard. Mr Speaker, regardless of a claim that an impress supply bill allows a wider debate, the member himself has said it's about the first 3 months of funding available to the government. And I think where we're heading at the moment is well outside what would be expected in this debate. And the member does himself no credit by having completely failed to accept the remedy that is readily available to him, should there be or should there have been any validity in the comments that he is now trying to put across to the House.
Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I think the assumption that the member is making is that the declaration of pecuniary interest is wrong. It may be that the Company Office declarations are wrong. It may be that the declaration that has been made to the Registrar of Electors, which I will get on to soon, is wrong. Mr Speaker, I do not know which of the documents which are inconsistent that Mr Finlayson has made by way of 3 separate declarations are accurate, and therefore, sir, I have chosen to bring it up this way, as is my right. I have not suggested, Mr Speaker, a breach of privilege. because, sir, that would work on the assumption that the Companies Office declaration was right and the declaration made to the Registrar of Pecuniary Interest was wrong.
Order. The Honourable Jerry Brown. It is a very serious matter.
Mr Speaker, I think the member actually in his protestations in that little offering to the House condemns his own course of action because he has previously said that he believes that these are matters that should be investigated. The way in which he can have that investigation, or could have had that investigation, would be first to write to the member himself seeking a clarification. Mr Finlayson is a very, very senior lawyer, very well respected in the profession, and I'm quite sure not a man given to making mistakes. Secondly, had he followed that course of action and gone into the issue of privilege, then there would have been an inquiry, quite naturally, conducted by the Speaker. Mr Speaker, I think the problem we have here is that the Register of Pecuniary Interests requires that members act honourably in the disclosures that they make in that register. So we are indulging Mr Mallard this afternoon in allowing him to actually impugn the reputation of a member simply because he has himself failed to follow the right process to get to the bottom of what clearly appears to be a matter causing him to lose sleep. Mr Speaker, it's a nonsense. It's outside the confines of this debate, even by any stretch of the imagination or by any tolerance that might normally be allowed. And I would suggest, sir, that it's inappropriate in this debate for this discussion, for these allegations to be laid on the table of the House.
No, I've heard backwards and forwards on this. I just want to put a couple of things on the table. Firstly, I'm not in a position to measure the rights and wrongs of this. Members who make statements in this House are entitled to do, and they can be held accountable for them if they have found to have overstepped the mark by claim and counterclaim. If the claims are made utterly without foundation and they have affected a member's reputation, then members so offended can take the matter to the Privileges Committee. You do not have an untrammelled right to take a member's reputation down in this House. That is clear. But I refer members to that worthy book, McGee, and on the case of the address and reply budgets debates, McGee writes, in practice there is virtually no limitations to this debate on the grounds of relevancy. Virtually no limitations on this debate on the grounds of relevancy. So according to McGee and the advice that I've received from the clerk, this is a very free-ranging debate without limits. And on that basis, I'm going to invite Mr Mallard to speak, but before that I'll take a point of order from the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, there is some absurdity in what you're suggesting, if I might suggest, because it would seem then that if someone came into this House and simply took their speaking slot and used it to recite nursery rhymes during a debate like this, that would be perfectly acceptable. It would, in fact, sir, I think, be trifling with the House, and I think it would be stretching the House's tolerance for such an action to be taken. I think there is no difference, though, in coming into the House and deciding to run out a whole series of allegations designed to besmirch the reputation of a member, a style of politics well known to be the trademark of the Honourable Trevor Mallard. And, sir, I think it is inappropriate in this debate. The Chair is not bound by, or the Speaker is not bound by Mr McGee's writings, large volume and often referred to as it might be. The Speaker's responsibility is to ensure that the Parliament itself is not the subject of disreputable behaviour, the subject of a trifling with the right to speak freely in this House. And indeed, sir, the Speaker has a responsibility equally to ensure that the rights of members are not unduly trampled upon in the processes of this House.
Well, can I just respond before I call the Honourable Trevor Mallard? All of those things would be very good, but can I say to the member, from my own experience, these debates have always been free-ranging and wide-ranging, and on occasions I have wondered what the member was, the point the member was members were trying to make it has been allowed. If members got up and cited nursery rhymes, then